It's Tuesday, April 21st, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. No date has yet been set as to when schools will reopen in Barbados. The new term was scheduled to commence on April 16, but schools have remained closed as part of restrictions enforced by government to curb the spread of COVID-19. However, Acting Prime Minister and Education Minister Cynthia Bradshaw at a press conference yesterday said the ministry had used the time to train 80% of teachers in utilizing technology to assist students.
Already, though, some of our teachers, in consultation with their principals and other stakeholders, have begun using the available online resources and technology to better familiarize themselves and their students with the technology and environment. And they will be using this, obviously, to a greater extent in the future. Our aim is to have this emergency response mechanism in terms of our technology rolled out in all schools once the circumstances permit. During this familiarization period, teachers, rather than introducing new concepts, will use the opportunity to reinforce those subjects taught in terms 1 and 2, respectively. This will allow the approximately 80% of teachers who have already been trained by the Ministry of Education and through its ITC coordinators to use the new technology and to be able to test this learning while allowing the ministry to facilitate the training of the remainder of our teachers in the system.
Bradshaw revealed the ministry was also working with various service providers and suppliers to ensure that households are equipped with electricity and internet, as well as the necessary equipment to allow children to utilize the online initiatives. Meantime, the minister said the Common Entrance Examination, or 11 plus as it's more commonly known, which was scheduled to take place during the first week of May, remains fluid and might be postponed beyond the proposed June date.
We have initially said that we would postpone until the end of June, but that is still subject to review, obviously, after the 4th of May. And those discussions are ongoing as well with the various stakeholders in terms of the best time. It may very well be that we will have to postpone the exam beyond the June period, but at this stage, it's still a bit too early to say with any degree of certainty. What we are trying to do is to ensure that students who are preparing for exams at any level, that they're not obviously disadvantaged. We're trying to ensure that the issue of devices is something that, and the access to devices and obviously electricity and Wi-Fi connectivity is something that the ministry has been engaged in discussions with stakeholders so as to try to ensure that no child basically is left behind in this process, because we're mindful children are coping with having to adjust to this period. Parents are having to adjust to this period, and ordinarily the examination brings with it a certain level of anxiety on all stakeholders. So particularly in this environment, we don't want to do anything that is going to disadvantage any student at this point in time.
Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic said officials are looking to transfer all 37 COVID-19 patients housed at the Blackman and Golub Educational Plant to the Harrison's Point Isolation Facility as soon as is possible. The facility received its first 3 patients on Sunday from the isolation center at Enmore, and yesterday the process started for those at Blackman and Golub.
And that will be ongoing throughout the week because it is a fairly delicate procedure that has to take place, and we are doing so very, very carefully. So we'll take our time to make sure that we get those persons transferred to Harrison Point as soon as is possible. The intent is to fully utilize the Harrison Point facility. We have the staffing for that facility, local staff as well as the nurses from Cuba who have been put into operation from yesterday, and we will continue to operate that facility. Fortunately for us, even though we have not been able to receive the number of ventilators that we have already purchased from abroad, we have sufficient ventilators, enough ventilators on island that would allow us to be able to deal with what presents before us right now and also what we anticipate in the very near future. And we are in the fortunate situation at this point to have 1 patient only on ventilator. And we've been very fortunate that we've had persons who have been or were on ventilators who have been taken off ventilators.
Some Kropover stakeholders are on board with government's decision to cancel this year's festival. Band leaders, tent managers and entertainers tell Barbados Today the cancellation of the annual event was inevitable given that COVID-19 is yet to be controlled globally. While they are disappointed the festival would not be held this year and mindful of the financial blow to full-time entertainers and other creative industry figures, they agreed that the health of the nation must take center stage at this time. The local Seventh-day Adventist Church has launched a food bank initiative to assist vulnerable persons during the COVID-19 pandemic. During Sunday's launch, church officials packed hampers for distribution, which was made possible by a financial injection from the East Caribbean Conference of SDAs, along with donations from corporate Barbados. Personal Ministries Director of the East Caribbean Conference of SDAs, Pastor Dale Haynes, is hoping that all Adventist churches on the island will be used as food banks.
We have 58 churches, 60 around there. We want every church now to be a food bank, where every church now would, in their area, have the food items, and they would give to the vulnerable people of our societies. We started last week, and we were able to connect with organizations. We reached out to the Barbados Council for the Disabled, and now we give donations to them. Also to those nurses on the front line, in those quarantine areas and the high-risk centers, so we were able to make donations to them, mitigation unit as well, and person from the community who are vulnerable. So, that's what we're doing. We are, as a church, we are mindful that the church has to connect also to the church, that this is what we're here for, to help, so all of us can walk together hand in hand, through this pandemic.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, Grenada's Health Minister Nicholas Steele puts the country on notice for the possibility of community spread of COVID-19 following the hospitalization of a 45-year-old man on Sunday with symptoms consistent with the virus. Steele said the man is currently isolated in the COVID-19 section of the General Hospital, pending test results. All 14 confirmed cases on the island were either imported or import-related. However, Steele said the man has no travel history.
Currently, officials are yet to determine whether he has been in contact with any of the previously confirmed cases. Health officials have been in discussions with the employer of the individual, and employees have been asked to self-isolate. All of the employees and everyone known to be in contact with this individual will be tested, consistent with the established health protocols. The investigation is still in its very early stage, but we must prepare ourselves for the possibility of a community spread of COVID-19 in Grenada. Fellow citizens, this battle against COVID-19 can be won, but only if we each do our part to protect each other. We cannot afford to be selfish in our activities, engagements, and practices, because every move we make potentially impacts our entire society.
Finally, U.S. President Donald Trump said he will sign an executive order to temporarily suspend all immigration into the country in response to the coronavirus outbreak and to protect American jobs. The president made the announcement on Twitter on Monday. However, it is not immediately clear who could be affected by the president's decision, and the White House has not commented. That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.